The Sexy Brutale is a stylish murder mystery put in a blender with Majora's Mask and garnished with a little bit of Silent Hill. It is rather unfortunately named, but behind that mask is not only an incredible story and unique gameplay mechanics, but one of my favorite games of the year. So you play Lafcadio Boone, and that's a name if I've ever heard one. A man with no memory who wakes up one day inside the mansion/casino called the Sexy Brutale. A lady badly in need of a tampon tells you that all the staff have gone kill crazy, and that by the end of the night, all of the guests in the mansion will be dead. So you're tasked with protecting all the characters, but there's a twist. You aren't allowed to actually directly interact with any of them. All that you can do is peep through keyholes, listen to conversations through walls, and interact with the environment. But if you try to go into the same room as a guest, their demonic masks will chase you out. Of course, it's impossible to save everyone in the mansion in the same 12-hour time period, so to help in your efforts, you're granted a magic pocket watch that can rewind time back to noon that day, although using it erases any items you may have collected. So I could say the Sexy Brutale is a point-and-click adventure game, but that doesn't really accurately describe what you spend most of the time doing. I almost want to say the Sexy Brutale is more akin to a stealth game than it is a point-and-click adventure game, because the puzzles are all really simple on account of there not being many things to interact with, but that is by design. The real meat of the gameplay is tailing a guest and their murderer throughout their day and learning their daily routine. And then once you've figured that out and listened to their conversations and explored the parts of the mansion they walk around, generally the solutions to the puzzles become obvious by that point. Of course, tailing a guest throughout their day can be difficult when you aren't allowed to be in the same room as anyone else, but in a really interesting dynamic, as the guests die one by one, the house becomes easier to explore, but your time to do so in before you get booted back to noon at midnight shrinks as well. Now, I freely admit, I am not the biggest fan of point-and-click adventure games, partly because I don't like inventory puzzles much, but mostly because I have an issue with how they usually do failure states. Now, how it generally goes, that adventure games fall into one of two categories. First of all, you have the Sierra school of thought, which is where the game allows you to miss critical items and potentially get to a point where you can no longer continue, thus making you restart the entire game, which is awful. And then you have the LucasArts school of thought, where that's basically not allowed to happen because of how the game's designed. But then there are no failure states, and the gameplay turns into a task of, okay, rub everything you have on everything else, and hopefully eventually you'll find progress somewhere. Now, the Sexy Brutale fixes this issue by allowing things to fail, allowing guests to die, allowing you to fuck up, but also by including time travel to reset to the start of the day so that you can then try again, but this time with all the knowledge you've gained from doing it the first time. It's a genius solution when you think about it, which I guess is why a lot of games like Life is Strange are sort of adding in that time travel element to make up for the sort of faults of the genre. Now, I think my favorite thing about the Sexy Brutale is just how alive the game feels. Like, everything in the house is connected and timed out so that it's all taking place in this one giant space. For example, when Red dies by zapping himself on the electric cage, the lights will flicker throughout the mansion. Or when Sixpence dies every day at 3:45 p.m., the gunshot echoes throughout the house, and all the guests have different reactions to hearing it. And that leads to a real sense of the rest of the mansion and characters being real and existing outside of just what you can see on the screen. And not only that, but the game also manages to capture my favorite thing about Majora's Mask, which is the nihilistic pointlessness of everything you're doing. The tutorial pulls this off perfectly. So, the idea of the tutorial is that you're basically being walked through a little baby's murder mystery to get you accustomed to how the game works, and you save a guy named Sixpence by placing a blank into the gun that he gets shot with. And then, after you save him and reset the day, you wake up and see his murderer walking on the floor above you, talking about, "Oh, I can't wait to go shoot this guy." It's like all the progress you make, all the lives you save, are only saved temporarily as you constantly reset and reset and reset. All the good that you've done can be just as easily undone. That's the sort of feeling I got playing Majora's Mask, and the Sexy Brutale captures it perfectly. Now, I don't want to spoil anything story-wise beyond what I already have, but I assure you, the story comes together into an amazing finale that is totally worth experiencing. And the music, holy fucking shit, the music in this game is amazing! Not only is just the general sound and tone of the music perfect for this sort of game, but also the music changes throughout the day and is timed to certain events in the day. So like when a guy gets murdered, the music of that room and that general area is timed to his murder so that the music rises as like the dramatic tension goes up and then stops abruptly as he gets shot. And it's just the coolest thing ever. I need to own the OST for this game yesterday, and the fact that you can't buy it is a crime against nature. Okay, so are there any bad things about the game? There are a few uninterruptible animations that annoy me. Like, whenever you reset the day and wake up, you go through this little sequence of Boone standing up, checking his mask, and then you're allowed to move, and that's unskippable. That's about as good as I got, folks. That's the worst thing about the game right there, is just there are a few uninterruptible animations. Seriously, this game took me 5 hours to beat, and there is basically zero replayability, but you know what? For one of the most highly polished and unique games that I've played in a long time, I'd say that it's 100% worth the $20. I'm actually really glad I got around to playing it this year, because I'm all but certain it'll be featuring very prominently in my best games of 2017 list. So if you're willing to roll the dice on the Sexy Brutale, I can almost guarantee you'll hit the jackpot. I'm mixing my gambling metaphors there. Whatever, it's good, go buy it! Hey everyone, this video was done as part of a series called RNG+, where I randomly pick a game off my to playlist, give it a shot, and then make a video about it. So, let's go find out what we're playing next week. And the winner is... it is Prison Architect. Okay. So, what I know about Prison Architect is that it's basically a management sim, sort of akin to like Roller Coaster Tycoon, or it's a management buildy game, right? But instead of building roller coasters or whatever, you're basically building a prison which has to house inmates. It's a for-profit prison, so you're sort of you're gaining money, and you spend that on building and upgrading shit. So it's basically a management building sim, but centered around a prison. I've heard good things about it. It's been in early access. It was in early access for a while, I think, and it just came out of it stuff like a year or so ago. So yeah, I'll get around to that and tell you what I think next week. So back to pre-recorded me for the ending. Special thanks to my wonderful Patreon patrons, Isaiah Christo, Sans Bucky, Forgotten Paladin, Ludwig, Mageline, Mythnut, and Soul.